Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to show you guys how I make a chapter of my webcomic using Krita and Blender. I wasn't initially going to do a voiceover, but the video is just too long to make captions and I kind of couldn't be bothered. Just as a disclaimer, this video isn't really a tutorial, it's just kind of how I do things, and that might change in the future. As you can see on the screen, my webcomic is called Chaos Granny and it was inspired by a Tumblr post about an old lady being the chosen one, and I started it around 2021 and have just been very slowly working my way through it. I used to upload chapters every 2 weeks, and then it became 3, and then 4 weeks, and then 2 months, and now 4 months, and I just have to work on it in my free time, so I just work on it whenever I can. And this video isn't really going to go into how I plan the story or the world building, and I'll be using my latest chapter, chapter 20, as an example. So if you're interested in the webcomic and you don't want any spoilers, please go ahead and check it out on Webtoon Canvas and leave a like or comment or share, just because I really appreciate any engagement. I also didn't really script this video, so you'll have to forgive me if it doesn't sound as good sometimes. So to start off, I like to make a storyboard, which is something that I already did before I started this video. I never got a chance to record it. I used Walter Ostlie's Krita webcomic templates, and I'll link his video in the description because I think it's a much better tutorial about how to make webcomics in Krita, though it was posted quite a while ago, so there may be some changes. What I did was I copied and pasted some vector layers from a previously finished chapter, which just has all of my formatting for the text boxes / speech / actual text, so I don't have to make a new one each episode. So for the panel borders, I just used a vector layer with some squares that I adjusted to give borders around some of my panels, and I'm making them to just match the rough guidelines that I put in the thumbnails. And as you can see, my thumbnails are really rough because it's mainly just so I have a visual reminder of what's in each panel. I used to do line art for my chapters, and you'll be able to see in previous chapters the art style is much different to what it is now, but I just didn't really enjoy doing line art, and if you see some of my other videos on YouTube, you'll see that line art isn't really something I do. I tend to just go into it straight away. So here I'm just showing you an example of Blender, which I use to make the backgrounds of my webcomics now. Again, I used to do them by hand, but I think I just enjoy doing it in Blender more because I can make more interesting backgrounds and also use a variety of different angles and things, and it saves me a lot of time because I can just make one big scene and then adjust the camera and take images in different angles and different compositions as I need it to be, and then as you can see here, just insert it into the Krita file. I usually then paint over the backgrounds again, adding more detail or just changing bits that I don't like. I tend to jump around a lot and work on different panels at the same time because I just get bored and demotivated when I have to stay on the same thing for too long, and jumping around makes me feel like I'm making progress. Currently you can see me working on what is actually chapter 20 part 1, but I have an entirely separate document for part 2 to stop this file from getting too big, and it's roughly the same size as this one, so you can probably tell that there's just so much to do, especially with this more painterly, detailed style. It's really funny because when I first started Chaos Granny, I told myself, oh, the art style is not going to be that complicated, it's going to be quite simple, because when you look at my other artwork, it's way more rendered. But this is still really complicated and detailed, and now I've sunk too much time into this, so I can't stop. And I don't really want to stop, but it gets a bit painful having to do all of these tiny details, and I just really regret my decisions sometimes. But yeah, so often I will, like when I'm working on new chapters, I will copy and paste things from previous chapters to save myself some time, especially in this one, because again, it took so long to do all of the crowd scenes and paint in all of the stall items. So maybe if I ever decide to set a future chapter in a market, I will either model the store items or the characters as well, or I'll simplify them further into blobs, because this chapter took so long that I lost the will to live. What you can currently see now is me modelling some more backgrounds for later on in the chapter. So it will be nighttime and the characters are going to a tavern and I'm just modelling the street. So all of these house assets I modelled myself following some YouTube tutorials, and if I can I will try and find the links to the videos and put them into the description. So these were all modelled a long time ago and I just simplified them and dropped them into a scene, and now I'm just changing some of the materials that I'll put onto the main house and other things as well. I also made models of my main characters, so at the moment I have Sol, Granny and Boss, and I need to make the model for my final main character from the cover art because I haven't got around to making that one yet. But again, I used to draw all of my characters by hand and do the line art for the characters and then paint over it all, but it just took so long, and I also felt that it looked quite inconsistent, especially as I'd keep forgetting the colours of the characters' clothes and I would have to keep going back to previous chapters to reference or just end up doing it wrong, which was quite annoying. So I find it simpler to have just made a basic model in one basic pose and then just take pictures from different angles and then put them into the webcomic and then just paint over the top of the models. So this just keeps the colours and the design / sizes and things like that of the characters more consistent, and it also saves me a lot of time with colouring. So for example, I don't have to keep constantly painting Sol's coat or Granny's hair and glasses every single time, which just gets a bit tedious and boring and is not as fun to do, which makes me less likely to want to do it, and then that ends up delaying me making the chapter and getting it out basically. What I'm doing now on the screen is modelling the interior of the tavern, which is mostly for chapter 20 part 2 but also for towards the end of this chapter. In hindsight, I probably didn't need to put this much effort into the tavern interior because I only use it for a few panels, and it took way longer to model the whole thing than it would have to probably have just drawn it by hand. But I actually quite like how it turned out, and it was a fun little challenge for improving my modelling skills in Blender. I also think practicing this will be really useful for future chapters when my characters actually spend a longer amount of time inside, and I'll also be able to reuse a lot of the assets that I've made for those scenes later, so like the table, chairs, chandelier, things like that. The whole story of Chaos Granny is actually all planned out, and I'm probably not even a third of the way through at the moment. It's again quite funny how ambitious I was when I first started this, because I was telling myself that it would be done in maybe like 2 or 3 years, and here I am not having even introduced all 4 of the main characters yet, almost. I think it's 3 years now, 3 years later. Not to mention, I want to start another webcomics. If you've seen other videos on my channel, you'll know I have another story called Dreams in the Abyss, which I've been working on since roughly around the same time as Chaos Granny, so about 3 or 4 years ago. And I want to make it using the same more rendered painterly style that I do most of my paintings with. So who even knows how long that will take when I actually get around to starting it. I've been trying to check myself, so at the moment I'm going to make sure that I'm at least halfway through Chaos Granny before I decide to commit to an entirely separate webcomic. But I'm just releasing videos of the painting processes from Dreams in the Abyss at the moment, which also includes snippets from the story and lore and things like that, because I've been really enjoying making the story and doing the world building and stuff like that, because the story of Dreams in the Abyss is a lot more, I guess, like serious and kind of dramatic compared to Chaos Granny, which is just a funny little comic about a group of people causing problems and getting into trouble. But if you're interested in Dreams in the Abyss, you can find the videos on my channel with like the world building and story and lore and stuff if you're interested. There is an actual plot though to Chaos Granny. It's not just a bunch of random people getting into trouble and causing problems. They are trying to get from point A to point B, but it's a bit of a zigzag and a swirl in the middle before they actually need to get to where they want to go. But yeah, everything is like planned out and there is a plot, so I know roughly what I want to happen in each chapter. But yeah, it's just taking a long time for me to get it all out. But I will get it out. I'm determined to finish Chaos Granny, even if it's like 20 years in the future when it finally gets done. So right now, I just looked up some YouTube tutorials on how to model tables and things in Blender. and I'm just modelling a couple of tables to populate the tavern with, and the textures are again things that I made previously ages ago, some simple like anime textures, and I'm just adding those. So they were already populating previous assets, and now I'm adding them onto the tables and just using that to fill the space to make it more interesting, and just adjusting using the shader nodes to make them just look a bit better, I guess. So I pretty much followed the exact same tutorials to make the chairs, and I beveled some of the edges just to make them look more comfortable, as if it was something that people would sit on. And to be honest, I could spend a lot of time refining all of the individual points, but I just wanted to make like a rough space that looks decent enough that again I will probably go over and paint over to adjust as necessary, and it will save me time when I do things in different angles. So for the chandelier, because I've done modelling in Blender for a while now, just here and there, I kind of already had a rough idea how I was going to go about making it. I used a cylinder and I got rid of the insides and inset the faces to make like a ring, and then because it was all split into faces, I extruded some of the top faces to make like the protrudy parts of the chandelier. I think the main thing that I struggled with was making the candles in a way that they would be evenly spaced. So I think initially what I tried to do was use an array modifier, but I couldn't really make the circle fit around the base of the chandelier, and it kind of was just unevenly spaced in between all of the parts that were sticking up. So what I ended up doing was following a YouTube tutorial and inserting like an empty and arranging the candles around the empty, and then because it was still an array modifier, I could adjust one and then it would all be the same. So basically I had to search up a YouTube tutorial. I then just used Alt-D to duplicate the chandeliers, so if I ever wanted to change one of them, all of them would change, and then I just got to work on putting in interesting lighting and arranging the camera according to how I wanted the panels to look basically, and then I exported those images and put them into the chapter. And once I basically finished all of the chapter in the main, in the main document, I basically copied and pasted all of the individual columns of panels into one long panel, and that's the thing that you need to export basically, and add it onto into Webtoon, and they will automatically chop up the image to match their guidance. So I think the image needs to be 800 pixels in width and the length is 1280, but for this the long document, this one was like, I think it was about 30,000 pixels, but you can put the entire thing in and Webtoon automatically cuts up the image into 1280 by 800 pixels essentially. So I'm just copying and pasting all the individual layers, and once that's all into that one long column document, I then just go and space out the panels to make them look a little bit better. So I try to like scroll down and think about how it would look if someone was like scrolling through it on their phone or I guess on the computer, and think about how it would space to I guess give appropriate pauses or not to lose any momentum when there's like an action moment. But I don't think I'm that good at panel arrangement or anything, but it comes out well enough and I'm happy with it. And yeah, so I don't really put that much time into doing it. I suppose as I do it more, I'll get better, essentially. And then the last part is basically just making the thumbnails for the webcomic episode. So I think I aim to try and make it not super cluttered. So initially I'd wanted to insert a panel with all of the characters and some background bits in there as well, but then I realised it would just be a little bit too cluttered on the screen and you wouldn't really be able to see any of the details anyway, so I just focused it on a single character's face, I guess, so that would be what people focused on for that episode. And then I just export that as a JPEG, and then you can import that into you can just upload it onto Webtoon when you're uploading your final episode. So here it's just the page of what it looks like when you want to upload the episode onto Webtoon Canvas. So in this section, this is where you'd import the JPEG or PNG version of your thumbnail, and they've given you some guidance for the sizes and the size of the image. And here you can put the title of the webcomic, and obviously this is where the body of the webcomic upload will be. So you just select the file that you want to upload, and it will be that long like 30,000 by 800 pixel image that you saw me putting all of the panels into, and then Webtoon will automatically slice and reduce the images to match the size. It used to be that you had to slice them up in Krita, but now it does it automatically. And then you can leave a little comment for your readers, and then you can like preview it on the PC, save it as a draft, preview it on the mobile, and then you can choose when you want to publish it, and then just publish the episode. And then here is where the chapter will show up once you've published it, and you can just edit the episode or you can delete it if you like, and yeah, that's basically how I make an episode of Chaos Granny. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I would absolutely love it if you guys could check out Chaos Granny, leave a like or comment or share it with anyone you think might enjoy it as well. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video.